right in. I'm going to recall the meeting to order now that we're being recorded, so that's officially on camera. Thank you, Adrian. Great, so thanks for joining us. I think if we can get some quick business out of the way, I'm going to go slightly out of order and suggest that we look at the minutes that we need to approve from previous sessions. Brian, I have a couple of comments and I'm not sure procedurally how we do this if changes need making. So I'm just going to start for Adrian. Did you have an answer to that?
I was in the moment of telling Brian he was muted, but he figured that out on his own. So
if we want to be really picky, you submit for each change or for a group of changes for each minute, you submit an amendment to the motion to approve it that includes the changes. Honestly, I think we can just say, here are the changes. Do we approve, can we move to approve the agenda with these or the minutes with these changes? I think that's fine.
So I'm going to go in reverse order and start with January 5th.
Yep.
The only note I have is that Colin Killick's term had ended, so he should be removed from the absent list as commissioner.
Got it.
Did any other commissioners have comments on January 5th? I wasn't in attendance, so.
This is Leanne. I don't have it open in front of me. I know there were a number of them where Director Capers' name was misspelled. But
this is Bonnie. That was July, August, and September.
Yeah.
Okay, then no comments on this one.
Okay.
And Bonnie, you can put it in, and if we want to be as efficient, you can put it on the table and we can just vote for them all at once.
Okay, great. Did Holly have any comments on January 5th? You're muted, Holly.
Sorry. This is Holly. On the second page under new business, the MassDOT variance, where it said there's no clear reason why making sidewalks compliant ends at the point selected since the project does not end. I'm not sure if the minutes left that as sort of a question or if that's a follow-up item, or it just seems like, how did that go? Because clearly we all.
This is Bonnie. How that went is I included that as part of the memo that I sent opposing the variance. And I believe SAS also sent a message saying similar, that it made no sense to end it there when there was a bus stop in very close proximity. So that was addressed in the memo.
Okay, that was my only question. Thank you for clarifying.
And since it was just mentioned, I'm going to state in case I don't get back to it, it has been confirmed for the 28th, I believe is the date. It's a Monday, for that to go to a full hearing with the Architectural Access Board. And I will try to remember to share the agenda with everybody after this meeting. Great. So can I just say that I want to lay those on the table? Great, lay those on the table. So my comments for September, August, and July, actually September and August are Director Capers is missing the S in her last name. And then July the same, but also Councillor Ballantyne's last name is spelled incorrectly. So we might want to fix that to the correct spelling. Brian, you're muted.
This is Brian. In January, what month was that?
July.
In July, okay.
Yes. And July, August, and September, Denise Capers is missing the S at the end of her last name.
Yeah.
Were there other comments from other commissioners? Holly?
July, that was where Colin on the new business section, the second page, Colin was asked about what the city could do for the commission. And he suggested, using the law to earmark, to figure out how to get those parking funds set up. And it says that the accessible parking funds to goals ad hoc committee moved to review the creation of a budget to spend the violation funds, when actually it was, we were going to research the process of the requirements around the city for how that works from the legal perspective, not a plan of how to spend it, because we didn't even have that set up yet. It wasn't part of our municipality's process. I'm not using the right word. So
can we be more like, I don't know what you are proposing we change it to.
So instead of saying move to review the creation of a budget to spend those funds, maybe
okay.
like move to review the law and how to
Allocate
On-
or not allocate.
Okay. Yeah, I thought we'd specifically discussed trying to figure out what we would spend the money on at that time. But you're right, there was a conversation about whether the law could
it didn't
allow-
exist. Yeah, it wasn't something that the Somerville was doing.
This is Bonnie. I think we discussed both of find out what we need to do in terms of getting Somerville to implement the existing law and start researching what we would do with those funds, because previously we had been told without having a plan for them, it was going to be hard to get that implemented, which, as we saw, it was not hard. We just needed other avenues. But at the time, that was our understanding. So I think we said both. So I would recommend adding in research.
Law.
the legal ability to
Yes,
create that fund.
yes. Okay.
I believe it's in Massachusetts general law, MGL, something. So
It
I
is.
literally had to send that to the city so that they
Mhm.
could bring it forward. So maybe we just need to add that part because it didn't exist
Yep.
before.
I will add that in.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Leanne, did you have anything?
So that was July and August.
So that was July.
This is Leanne. I did not have anything else.
Okay. This is Bonnie. August, was there anything specific?
This is Holly. It talked about being interested in the director's report about education, shared documents, closed captioning, and the 2 items about the public meetings and the document library. When something is listed here and nothing happens, do we put it into the next minute that says we asked for this in August, it's September, we don't have an answer, or do we put it into like?
This is Bonnie. I think that depends on whether or not it was discussed at a future meeting. And I think we need to get better about approving minutes quickly so that we can say whether or not something was discussed. Because I know that it has come up since then, specifically the documents library, and orientation has come up, but it's hard to go back and say at this point, but I think we can certainly make note of that in this meeting once we get done with these minutes so that it is in the minutes for this meeting.
Okay, thank you. Otherwise, I don't have other questions.
Yeah. And just a note, Bonnie, just a tidbit that I recently learned from the city clerk. Ideally, it's good to have a draft of the minutes within 10 to 14 days from the meeting. And then, of course, as you know, the procedure is to review them at next month's meeting, and then you can put them up. That's the ideal situation, given.
This is Bonnie, yes, and that is also in our bylaws, and one of the things that I wanted to mention so that we can be doing this more frequently in the future.
Do we have the, well, we'll go past that, sorry.
Okay. So then September, was there anything specific?
Before we go to September, was there any changes in August?
I thought we were just talking about August.
That's what I thought too, but I wanted to make sure.
No, it was more of a question of, do we need a section about this is a follow-up item?
Perfect.
So,
Right.
thank you.
September? Going once, going twice. December. Let me find my notes.
What happened to October and November?
I just haven't been able to write them yet.
Okay, I'm sorry, that's fine, Brian.
No, that's,
I didn't mean it like, why isn't it there? I
no,
meant
no, no,
that-
I didn't take it that way.
Yeah,
No
worry.
Bonnie, there's also
Thank you.
another meeting in January, and I'm not sure. So Katie had been the secretary for that meeting, and I know the notes have been forwarded to Brian, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure if we need to think about whether or not Brian can do the notes, because I think that Katie was secretary because Brian had to recuse himself. So
Well, no, I wasn't a member on that
oh,
evening.
right, you weren't a member
So,
on the,
yeah,
right, okay. So I think probably I will need to take them and try and flesh them out. So,
here's Katie's.
or we could,
Yeah, I mean, the
Oh,
only
choose
thing
to
is
approve them
Katie
as
should
they
have
are.
sent this around to everybody because her minutes, I mean, my personal opinion is that she's way too detailed in her minutes, but she's writing the minutes. That's her
This is-
decision, not mine.
this is
Um,
Bonnie, I think some of us find yours a little lacking in detail,
Too
so
brief,
maybe
which is
somewhere in
fine.
between.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, really, this should have been sent around for everybody to review and not just sent to me.
This is Bonnie. I had sent them just to, so Katie had sent them to me, and I sent them to you thinking you're the secretary, and that was my mistake, not thinking about why she was taking them in the first place. So I will speak with her about fleshing them out, or just making sure the format is good, and then make sure that they're done for the March meeting.
Okay.
So that one we're not going to vote on this evening because, yeah, nobody's seen it.
Okay.
But otherwise, October and November are just waiting to be written up. So I think, does somebody want a motion to vote on all of these?
I don't think I can make that motion.
This is Holly. I motion to vote on these minutes.
As the chair, can I?
You
make
can
it?
second.
Okay, I second that.
Actually,
motion.
anyone can second.
Great. All in favor of accepting these
I,
With these revisions.
with these revisions? Yes.
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion
Aye.
passes unanimously. Great. So the next agenda item the bylaw revision. I'm trying to pull up the bylaws so that I have it in front of me. Apologies for not already having that.
Did we already approve, this is Holly, did we already approve the December minutes?
This is Bonnie, that was in these. And nobody had,
Perfect.
did you have
I
specific?
wasn't at the meeting, so I
Ah.
could not.
Should we vote on those separately? Can we do that now that we've already taken a vote?
Approve what?
Holly was asking about the December minutes because she was not at that meeting, which I had said they were part of what we just discussed, but I think I
She
might have
can,
glossed over it too quickly.
yeah, she can vote on, members can vote on minutes that they did not attend. There's nothing particularly wrong with that.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
At least so says all of the other meetings that I've been to, of even of the council, where people vote on minutes that they weren't in attendance of.
Okay. Great.
You have the choice to abstain if you want, but I don't.
Okay. So bylaws. I got a request to amend some things, so I can talk about what those things were, and then we can start with motions. One of them was revising the residency requirements for already serving commissioners until such a time as replacements can be appointed. And the other was the number of meetings an associate or a potential associate commissioner must attend before we then vote them in as an associate commissioner. I am happy to entertain other bylaw amendments as well. I will remind everyone, the only things we can change are things that are within state law. So these still have to comply with the general regulations laid out on state law for bylaws on commissions for disability. So are there,
Where, Bonnie, what specific, where is the line in the bylaw that states residency?
this is Bonnie. It is
Article 3 is membership.
Can you share the document?
This is Leanne. The bylaws should be in the email that Bonnie sent out with the agenda.
This is Bonnie. I can also share that right now.
And Brian, to answer your question,
Janice, she/her has started screen share.
The commissioners section, it starts off with the residents of Somerville categorized as follows, which I believe is the only place it's the commissioners as residents, and then associate commissioners says this unspecified number of associate commissioners must be residents of Somerville who ...
Thank you, Leanne. So in state law, there is no residency requirement. And in researching the ordinances for Somerville, this is something that was added to our bylaws at some point. Unfortunately, as we all know, we don't have good records for when, but we as commissioners have the power to amend our bylaws as long as they comply with state law. So this is just something that's in our bylaws. It's not against state law.
This is Leanne. The one other thing that I'm remembering from the last time we were talking about the bylaws that never actually made it through, or I'm not sure what happened with that, is what constitutes quorum. And I'm not sure if our definition is the same as the standard state definition. And that's another thing that might be worth changing if ours is trying to be the same, but is worded weirdly, so it's not.
This is Bonnie. I know that that was discussed with legal, and it was determined that quorum was half of the members plus one. Can you point me at the section in the document that we address quorum? I'm trying to as well, but
There might be multiple. The one I'm seeing right now is
Section
the
3.
very end amendments, maybe amended by a 50% plus one.
Yeah, Article
Yes.
4, Section 3.
yes. So that is correct.
Okay.
But I don't think that that is required. Like, I think we can make the quorum whatever we want to.
This is Bonnie.
Yeah, I just,
Yes,
Oh.
but I think that we had decided on this because it works.
this is Leon, the reason I bring it up is like one of the things that I think we're doing this, like looking over the bylaws, is just to make sure that we don't end up in a position where the commission can't do anything because there aren't enough people or aren't enough commissioners. And like the way this is written, it means that like if you have 3 people, then quorum is 3. Like if you have,
Bonnie, this is Bonnie. I'm going to stop you for a second because it also says that the chairperson may break a vote or may break a tie. And so even with 3, we can still hit quorum by doing that.
oh no, I just mean like in terms of like if there are 3 commissioners, then there's not quorum unless all 3 of them are present.
Correct.
And I know there's been history of the commission not being able to meet because they couldn't meet quorum. And I want to make sure that we don't make that more likely by having a weird definition of quorum. And you know, hopefully we get to a point where there are 9 commissioners and that's not an issue, but yeah,
And
just
we're also in a
something to
situation
consider.
where sorry, this is Holly. Since we're also in a situation where all appointments have been frozen, don't have a timetable, we're in a real issue right now that we should have some type of a plan so that we can continue.
This is Bonnie. I'm happy to talk about this. Does somebody have a motion on how to change quorum, how we would address that? And I also want to note in the chat that Crystal has said that the docs are on the city's website if anybody wants a link for their own device. Thank you. And Jamie asks, is 50% plus 1 different from a simple majority? I'm seeing Brian nod ahead. Brian, would you like to explain?
Yeah, so this is Brian. The difference is a simple majority is equivalent to saying greater than half. So greater than half of 3 would be 2 or 3, but 50% plus 1 of 3 is only, 50% plus 1 of 3 can only be 3.
This is Bonnie. Then, so do people want to discuss changing that to a simple majority?
Yeah.
I
would
This is
move.
Ian.
Sorry, this is Bonnie. Can we one at a time and maybe raise hands and I will call on people so that everybody can have access? Thank you. So I saw Brian and then Leon and then Holly.
So I was going to suggest a motion, but I can wait until Leanne and Holly have a chance to speak.
This is Holly. I agree with Brian. That's what I was going to say.
This is Leon. Yeah, I'm curious if anybody knows offhand or knows how to find it quickly, how like other commissions or city council or, you know, sort of equivalent groups in the city have it worded for them. Because I think like if something like city council says simple majority, it would make a lot of sense to just, change our wording so it matches. If it's changing it would mean we're the odd ones out, then maybe that takes more discussion. But if it's just, aligning with how everybody else is doing it anyway, then I think there's no reason not to.
This is Bonnie. Does anybody here feel equipped to be looking at that while we discuss other things? I see in the chat a link to frequently asked questions about calculation of quorum and majority. So I am going to click on that and it'll pop up. I think everybody can see this. So
This is Jamie Perconti. I happen to be looking at this page because I was curious about open meeting law stuff, and there was a whole section about quorum, so I thought it might be helpful to share that.
this is Bonnie. Thank you, Jamie. And I do see the first thing it says is the open meeting law defines a quorum as a simple majority of the members of a public body, unless otherwise provided in a general or special law, executive order, or other authorizing provision. So I think we should just glance at the Mass General laws for commissions on disabilities to make sure that that doesn't define it differently. And let's see if I can.
And this is Leanne. I was not aware that open meeting law specifically defined it. And I think if there's not a conflicting definition for specifically for disability commissions, I think this makes me feel even more strongly about changing it, because otherwise we're in a weird position where, if there were 3 commissioners, then 2 people wouldn't be allowed to talk to each other without violating open meeting law, but you would need to have 3 to vote on anything. And that just makes it even harder to get anything done, and having it aligned so that everything is the same. I didn't realize that there might be definitions of quorum that, overrode most of the bylaws for other purposes. So I think matching what open meeting law says would be very good.
This is Bonnie. I just looked and this laws do not reference quorum. Holly?
I have a document I'm holding from the Mass Office on Disability, and it's about the commissions on disability, how they're created, and it lists the applicable laws. And Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40, Section 8J, is actually what gives it an authority. What says if you get so much federal money, you have to have this commission. That's the only thing that's in MGL Chapter 40, Section 8J. But then it also talks about Section 504 of the Rehab Act is a piece of this. And then there's an amendment on Article 114. So there are, if we can pull up Mass Office, MOD, but I can find it there, unless someone else has found something better. Also, I just wanted to add, I don't think what we do has to be the same as the other commissions, because we are very different. And we represent the different, which is a great thing. So I think being different and being what suits this commission's needs is awesome. And we get to decide, we as that commission vote. So it's not that if we say something that doesn't line up, that it could be changed.
Yeah.
Leanne?
This is Leanne. I agree that we don't necessarily need to do things the same way as other commissions. I think the way our bylaws are written now is more restrictive than sort of the way it's generally done. And I don't see a reason to make things harder for us by being different than, rather than, I don't think this is a case where we need to do it differently and make things worse for ourselves.
This is Bonnie. Thank you. Brian, would you like to state that? Brian wrote in the chat, but I'm just going to ask you.
Sure thing. This is Brian. I move to replace Article 4, Section 3, first sentence with a quorum. Let me repeat this all, because a quorum for the conducting of official business shall consist of a simple majority of current commission membership.
This is Bonnie. Do we need to specify that that is full commissioners and not associate commissioners? Like the
No,
bylaws
no,
say
yep,
that associate
yep.
commissioners don't vote, but I'm just,
So, yes,
how about current voting commission membership?
hold on. Oh, we could say simple majority of current commissioners.
I second that motion.
Is it current or Brett.
I,
No, because quorum is determining who's present. So it's current. What I'm distinguishing between by saying current is that even if there's open seats don't count. So if we're allowed to have 12 people, but we only have 3, if you did by all potential commissioners, you would never reach quorum until you had 7 members.
This is Bonnie. And also, if we have 5 commissioners, but only 3 are present, quorum is still 3 because quorum is based off of how many members we have, not who is present at each meeting. That's the whole point, is we need to have enough people present to make quorum. So, Leanne?
and I will also, before we vote on it, note that it also gives that definition of quorum in Article 6 way at the end. I think that's the only other one. I can't, search because it's an old image and not actually a PDF. But I think that's the only other, but we should make sure to amend that one as well.
This is
50.
Bonnie.
Less time.
I want to take a second to read that. These bylaws may be amended at any time by a 50% plus 1 majority of the members present at a meeting where there is a quorum. However, the amendments must be in conformance. So
Yeah.
I do not believe that we want to change this, because what this is saying is when there is a quorum, the people who are present can make amendments. So the quorum itself is a simple majority. But do we want a simple majority for amending the bylaws? I think that we should discuss that.
This is Leanne. No, go finish.
Brian, yes.
I think the point here is that to amend the bylaws, you need a supermajority and not just a simple majority of the quorum. You need a supermajority of the quorum. And it doesn't change the definition of a quorum, which we're changing by the previous motion. I think they're 2 separate things. And I think I'm agreeing with Bonnie in saying that I think having a supermajority to amend the bylaws makes sense, while everything else, a simple majority is sufficient.
Okay, this is Leanne. Okay, I was currently they're worded the same, so I was assuming it was trying to do the same thing. But if we want it to be a different number there, then that is totally reasonable. And I don't. Is a supermajority the same thing as 50% plus 1?
A supermajority is any majority that's greater than a simple majority, and it can be defined in different ways.
Okay. Then if we want that to stay the same, then the initial motion sounds good to me.
Bonnie, if there aren't further comments, then we can take a vote.
This is Holly. I have a question. We're just discussing this one change, but we can still make others. That's what we're voting on. Okay. Is this being transcribed? Where's the?
This, Bonnie, it is not being transcribed. I have been told that we have CART for our regular meetings, and that we have closed captioning that's automatic via Zoom for non-regular meetings. I have requested it for special meetings and have been told that it is not in the budget.
I think we can add it in our bylaws.
This is Bonnie. I think that unfortunately the state law does not address this in the bylaw or in the creation of the commission. So I'm happy to talk about other ways we can address it, like maybe with city council. But unfortunately, that is not a thing that state law addresses to be able to put in our bylaws. And I want to make sure that what we're doing in our bylaws is based on that, because otherwise we need to bring in legal to get input on that. So do we want to vote on the motion about Article 3, Section 4? Great. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the motion
Aye.
passes unanimously. So Crystal shared a couple of things with me. One of them is there's a spelling error on page 1, Article 2B. I want to look at that. I can bring the page back up.
This is Leanne. It says advice and
Yes,
assist
and
instead
it
of
should
advise
say
and assist.
Advise, yes. Is somebody, Brian?
May I suggest that given it's a Friday night and I think there were some critical items that you wanted to do, I
Yeah,
think we should avoid the housekeeping items.
Great, thank you. There was one non-housekeeping item about a bit of legalese that we should at least glance at. Crystal, do you mind telling us where that was? Or I can.
This is Crystal on what I think is page 2, at least by the labels on the bottom.
Under Article 3
Article
membership?
3 membership, Section 1. The commission shall consist of 9 commissioners. My understanding and the understanding of my very legalese prone spouse is that shall means must, as in the commission must have 9 members, of which it must have this composition. Whereas if you intend may, and you're addressing the articles anyway, you may want to say may consist.
This is Bonnie, thank you. I believe that this is, so by state law, a commission must have 5 commissioners and may have up to 13. So I think this is something that we should take up again, because this is, I agree the legalese is a little weird there, and it's also, I think as a commission, we should talk about how many members we would like the commission to be when it's full. But I'm going to suggest that that deserves more attention than we could give it this evening. And we should come back to that unless somebody feels super strongly about doing that right now. Okay. Great. Then does somebody want to talk about the residency? I see Holly nodding. And Leanne after Holly. I don't know if we want to have discussion or if somebody wants to make a motion and then discuss the motion.
Lean, why don't you go first? Oh,
Okay, this is Leon. So I believe what we are trying to do here is make sure that the commission doesn't end up without enough commissioners to continue being a functional commission if people move away. And this is not a requirement of disability commissions in general. It is only, and it's not a requirement that, you know, Somerville imposes on all commissions. It's only something that is in our bylaws that got put there at some point. So the residency requirement currently shows up in two places. In Article 3, under commissioners, it has the residents of Somerville categorized as followed. And then under associate commissioners, it says they must be residents of Somerville. So my suggestion would be to remove the bit about residents of Somerville categorized as follows and replace that with, you know, the commission shall consist of then that ABC, and then instead have a line saying individuals must be current residents of Somerville to be confirmed as commissioners. But then in section 2, where it talks about term of appointment, and I'll read out and also put in the chat. My attempt at writing legally is, let me put it in the chat first so people can read along as I say it.
This is Bonnie. While you're putting that in the chat, I saw, Jamie, you have a raised hand. Was it something relevant to this specifically, or do you want to wait until after Leanne?
Yeah, I have a question, which is why wouldn't it be simpler to just get rid of the residency requirement altogether? Why do we want to require residency when people are appointed to the commission? What is the purpose of that? I don't actually know. Thanks.
This is Bonnie. Thank you. That is an excellent question. There is no requirement based on state law. I think that is a question as to whether or not this commission thinks it is necessary. I myself have some mixed opinions on it, and I would be happy to share those, but I would rather hear from other commissioners first if they would like to share their views on that. Leanne?
This is Leanne. I'm happy to, that's something that I was also going back and forth on. And I'm torn on what I think makes most sense, because on the one hand, as someone who has, moved around to various different apartments and not always been sure whether I would be able to stay in Somerville, even when I was, still actively doing a lot of stuff in there, before there was a pandemic, when I went places in person. And I do think there is definitely an argument in favor of people can have ties to the community without living here. And I also think that there is an argument in favor of wanting there to be some sort of, how do we filter for this is a person that, does have those ties and cares about the community versus this is a very politically active person from somewhere else that may not have the same context of what is needed here. And I honestly don't know which direction I think would win out.
This is Bonnie. Thank you, Leanne. Do other commissioners have thoughts on that? Holly?
I think that if there was a way that the commission could consider an applicant who is not currently a resident, but is either tied or employed in the city. So let's say we have this teacher who would be an excellent candidate for the commission. They're a teacher in the city. They themselves, they have children, they work with children, but they moved because of the housing issues. I think that would be a very appropriate and fantastic person to have, because not everyone who lives in the city has, not every resident has the same experience as the people who work in our city, is what I'm trying to say. So working here is just as valuable as being a resident here, if not more. None of that was wordsmithed properly, but I think you're shaking heads. So I think work, municipal work vocation, invaluable experience. What do you think, Brian?
Thank you, Holly, for recognizing me.
This is funny. As the chair, I'll officially recognize you, Brian.
Thank you. Holly, I really like what you're saying, and I've seen that before. I was searching through the web to see if I could find some bylaws from a couple other committees that I know that function that way effectively, where membership is accepted by both residents and people employed in the city of Somerville, not necessarily the government, but in the city itself. So employed or reside here in the city might be a better way to put it. I feel perfectly comfortable with that. I would resist the desire to get rid of that requirement altogether, because even though I agree that all members are appointed by the mayor, and thus that the mayor is essentially the gatekeeper, that also puts a lot of power in the mayor to appoint whomever they want to from wherever they want to, if such requirement doesn't exist. And not that I think that's a real threat, but I think it's one small check on that balance.
This is Bonnie. Thank you. Leanne, and then I noticed, Henry, you popped up on screen where you hadn't been before. So if you have comments, I would like to hear them as well. I'm going to go Leanne and then Henry.
This is Leanne. So those last two comments actually very nicely tie into a lot of where my internal conflict was. I think I was sort of leaning against the idea of completely eliminating the residency requirement because of what Brian said around having that check in place. But I also feel strongly against having a residency or employed in the city, especially for a disability commission, because so many disabled people can't work a full-time job, and thus don't have that option to qualify by working here. So I think if we are going to go that route, I would want it to be some sort of resident, live in the city, work in the city, or can demonstrate some other, like stable tie to the city and the community, that doesn't necessarily have to be officially employment, whether that's a volunteer position or a community group that they're active in. Because if we are going broader than just residents, I don't want to eliminate people because they can't hold a full-time job.
And Henry?
Thank you. This is Henry Hardy. I wanted to suggest a minimal change to overcome the immediate issue that we're facing with this, which is we're going to lose some folks due to the residency requirement because their residency has changed. I think we can have a more general discussion about this at another time. My suggestion is that we change the existing bylaw to say that residency is the requirement in order to be appointed. And just leave it open as to whether, if that residency changes, what happens. There wouldn't be a requirement to remove someone from the committee if they subsequently had a change in residence after having been lawfully appointed. And also, this doesn't have to be in the bylaws. It can be in standing rules, which are easier for us to negotiate. So my suggestion is that for now, we leave the residency requirement, but clarify that it only is with reference to being eligible to be appointed. Thank you.
Henry? So my own thoughts on this in terms of, removing it altogether. I appreciate what others have said. I had not thought about working or otherwise being tied to the city, and I think that's great. My concern would be if we remove it entirely. I think that there's so many of our positions are required to be people with disabilities or somebody who's a family member of somebody with a disability. And I think having that experience, that lived experience, is applicable to many places, but our commission, when it's doing its best work, is serving this community, right? So having a connection and understanding, in particular, the built environment of Somerville, which is not necessarily the built environment of other places, and specific projects, I think is kind of important to being able to look at some of that. But I could be wrong on that. Like I think
I don't think I recognize what I was saying. Are you responding to me?
This is Bonnie. No, I'm sharing my general thoughts on Jamie's question of why not just remove the residency requirement altogether?
Because my suggestion is not to remove it. It's to leave it in place, but
This is
but
Bonnie.
only with the requirement to be lawfully appointed.
This is Bonnie. Thank you, Henry. I understood your suggestion. I wanted to share my thoughts on the suggestion of removing it entirely. I think in terms of what to do now, after this discussion, I'm curious what other commissioners think in terms of what they would like to vote on.
This is Brian. I'm going to, Henry started the line of reasoning, and I feel like we should not talk around the subject. Bonnie, we don't want you to leave the commission. Leanne, we don't want you to leave the commission. I want that to be abundantly clear.
This is Bonnie. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate that. And I'm happy to hear more. But before you go in depth, I would like to state for the record that I do not have a desire to serve on this commission forever. I have a desire to get this commission to a point where it is functional without me, because I think that is the best thing for the city of Somerville, to have a large, engaged commission. So I personally, I'm approaching this as this is not something that I know that there are other commissions with people serving that are not residents of Somerville. I know that that is a thing in our bylaws. It is not a thing that was imposed on us by state law or the city of Somerville. I did a lot of work over the past year to try and get new commissioners, and appointments have been paused. And at this point, it feels like the commission will suffer if myself and Leanne are not on it until such a point that more commissioners can be appointed. So I have no delusions that I need to stay on this commission forever. I have no desire to. I just want to do what I can to get it to a position that it stays functional. So I'm going to let Brian finish anything he wants to say, and then I see your hand, Leanne.
So that all being said, I would hesitate to put into the bylaw something that would make this particular condition that we're in easier. If it were something along the lines of where we would be unable to meet as a body, I could understand that. And I completely agree with your position that Leanne and you make the commission function better. But a 3-person commission is still functioning. And so I hesitate to change a bylaw that doesn't actually solve a legal or real problem.
This is Bonnie. I will note that we have the very real problem that our secretary needs to recuse themselves on issues. And I have been informed by the city clerk that we have not been doing that where we should in many instances.
Mhm.
And we do not have anybody who can act as secretary at this point. We have a lot of terror at anybody taking that on. And I'm sure we are going to face the same thing when we get to the next agenda item where you need to recuse yourself. So I think with a 3-person commission, that's tricky. And also I will point out that via state law, if we are not on this commission, we're filling none of the slots that are required by state law by people with disabilities. And so I don't think that makes it a functional commission. Leanne?
So a couple things to respond to. The first is I want to also, the thing we haven't mentioned is that one of the people who is potentially leaving is the chair of the commission. And I don't know that we have, I could be wrong. I haven't talked to everybody directly, but I don't know that we have anybody who is eager to fill that role currently on the commission. And I think that, I don't want anybody currently on the commission to be pressured into taking that role if they don't feel comfortable with it. So I think that even if a commission of 3 people could be functional, it's important to make sure that we're not just leaving and suddenly there's no chair. And so then to go back to my other point, I think there's sort of 2 separate issues at hand. It sounds like we're all agreed that we want commissioners to have some sort of tie to the city. And we're not entirely certain what we want that tie to be, whether it's residency or employment or just can demonstrate any sort of tie. And I think that however we're defining that, the issue that we're coming up with me and Bonnie is still there. Because at least for me personally, I wouldn't feel comfortable continuing to serve on the commission long-term, because I think with moving, I'm not going to be as present in the city. Like I will probably still visit occasionally, but it's not where I'm going to be spending a lot of my time. So I'm going to be, quickly become less familiar with the issues that are specific to Somerville. So I think that even if we were saying you don't have to be a resident to be on the commission, you just have to demonstrate some sort of tie to the city, I think that, in a couple of months, I'm not going to be able to say that I have that. So I think that whatever we end up doing with what are we requiring to demonstrate a tie to the city, I think that I also want there to be some sort of language around if you lose that, whether that's, you move out of the city or you stop working a job that was in the city or you become less involved in whatever group you had been part of. I want there to be some sort of how does that transition happen? So it's not just, oops, that person's gone, and whatever institutional knowledge they had, whatever positions they were filling, you suddenly just have to scramble to make that up.
This is Bonnie. Thank you. A quick note on time, we've got 28 minutes left. So it sounds like there's maybe not consensus here. So I am less familiar with standing rules and how those work. And I would invite Henry to share more on that, because it sounds, based on what little they shared, that maybe this addresses the current issue without amending the bylaws. Is that a conversation, Brian, you would like to have?
This is Brian. I don't know anything about standing rules. I will point out that we have quorum, we have 4 members here. Based on our bylaws for amending the bylaws, we need 3 people to approve a change. So I actually don't, which is the same as a simple majority this evening. So making standing rules or changing the bylaw is the same
Okay,
from
thank you.
an operational standpoint. It's the same motion.
Okay, thank you. Henry, if it's fast, and then Leanne. Oh, you're muted. Oh. We can't hear you, Henry.
Sorry, thank you. This is Henry. To be brief, what I would propose that we do tonight is to change the bylaws so that people will be eligible to continue to serve if they move out of Somerville. That's my suggestion. I think it's too complicated to talk about standing rules, especially when that's not a familiar concept, and we don't want to use Robert's rules in a way which obfuscates or makes unnecessarily complicated what is a simple issue that we have right now that we need to remedy. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Leanne?
So I think my suggestion would be the issue of what we want the requirement to join the commission to be long-term is something that will take more discussion and can be, pushed off to a later date. And I think what we should do right now is add in something, like what I guess I didn't actually read it out, but around what happens if somebody moves away, and then sometime that is not right now tonight, revisit the idea of should there be a residency requirement, what should the requirement be, and whatever that ends up being can be rolled into the change if you move out of the city to if you lose that connection.
This is Bonnie, thank you. In the interest of time, I'm going to read what you wrote, which is, should a sitting commissioner move out of Somerville, their seat should immediately be advertised to search for a replacement commissioner. To ensure consistency of the commission's work, the sitting commissioner may continue to serve as a voting member until such time as their seat is filled. And if applicable, another commissioner has been elected to any positions they hold, or until the natural expiration of their term, whichever is sooner. And I'm going to say that I don't think it needs to be this complicated. I think that we could simply address this by saying, to be appointed commissioner, you need to be a resident of Somerville. And if we would like to add or employee, I think that that is a simple change that we can then discuss further how to amend that later on other strong ties to the community. But somebody else, Holly?
This is Holly. My one question is, can the mayor put someone forward without us first saying anything?
This is Bonnie. the mayor does all appointments. We have discussed as a commission what we would like to see of people. We have discussed our own process, and I think that that will still get followed. And I do want to get to the associate commissioners because we do have somebody to
But
confirm it.
legally,
But legally, the mayor appoints people and then the city council confirms them. We do not have control over that. We can just express our feelings on it. So in terms of the bylaws, that nothing there will change. So the mayor could choose not to appoint an employee. We can say we've made this change in our bylaws and we are open to that. But the mayor will make the appointments.
okay, so we have no way of being the first pass or review.
This is, Bonnie, it does state in our bylaws that it talks about how we vote in associate commissioners, and that when we have associate commissioners, we will put them forth to the mayor to be considered for appointment. And that is the same as it's always been. Historically, people have been put forth via the liaison or the commission, and the mayor has historically considered those people, just as they have considered people that come from open calls. I just want to remind folks, we have 20 minutes left and we have 2 more agenda items. So I'd like to move quickly on this. Leanne, do you have a substantial comment, or do we want to move towards?
Just a question on that. If we put something in the bylaws, can the mayor overrule it and, put forth someone that violates his bylaws, or do we have the power to put
This is
something in the
Bonnie,
bylaws
as
and make?
long as the bylaws follow state law. I do not believe the mayor has that power. Brian?
This is Brian. I'm not making this motion. I'm just suggesting this motion based on the language that people have been saying this evening to simplify it. No, this is just changing the sentence below commissioners on Article 3, Section 1. And we can drop the employee. I'm sorry, I should have said employee. Yeah, no, I'm an employee. We can drop the employee section. That was part of the conversation.
This is Bonnie. Sorry, I've lost my place in it. I thought that it was different. Oh, I'm on a thing Holly sent. So Article 3, Section 1. I don't believe I can make a motion, but I will note that this says appointment or reappointment, which I don't know if folks wanted to vote on whether somebody can be.
I added reappointment so that it was clear that in order to be reappointed, you also had to be a resident or employee in the city.
Thank you. Yeah,
That's-
this is Bonnie. Thank you. I was confused there. Thank you. That clarifies it. Okay, Holly?
This is Holly. The only thing, if we're not going to add the employee piece.
Okay.
I almost feel that we should, but not employee in Somerville, but employed in Somerville. But I would,
Yes, yes, resident or employed in Somerville. Yeah.
in the capacity of serving those with disabilities.
No.
This is Bonnie. I don't believe that's necessary because, well,
What a person does for their job is immaterial to this point.
Okay, so I will suggest the motion. I would.
This is Leanne. Before we motion, I just want to talk about the employee bit. My personal feeling is that I don't want to put that in at this point. because I think that if we put the employee bit in now, it will probably get left at that and not revisited for other community connections. And I think that that is important. So I'm willing to be overruled, but I would prefer to do it, just address the resident bit right now and then revisit whether that wants to be opened up broader when it can be more fully discussed.
This is Bonnie. Would you like to make the motion, Leanne?
So is the current thought to just revise the bit about residency and not add anything about what happens if someone moves midterm? Okay, then I motion to revise Article 1 or Article 3, Section 1, the commissioner section to read replace resident of Somerville with resident of Somerville at the time of appointment or reappointment, which I believe is the entirety of what we had settled on, but correct me if I'm wrong.
Just retyped what I think you said.
Which was, I was literally just reading what
I
you
know.
said and taking out the employee bit.
I'm just making sure I get it 100% correct for the minutes.
This is Bonnie. I just want to clarify Article 3, Section 1 under commissioners.
Yes.
And I see
And
say in versus of, yes, resident of Somerville, not resident in Somerville.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Does somebody want to second that motion?
I second the of portion of the motion, yes.
Do you second the whole motion?
Yes, I second the motion.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
I
Aye. And all opposed? Brian? All right, the motion passes 3-1. Great, so moving on to Associate Commissioner. Currently states to be considered an Associate Commissioner, an individual must attend 3 meetings and be voted in by the Commission. It's missing a period. And then it says Associate Commissioners serve at will with no designated terms and have no voting capability, et cetera, et cetera. They may be considered as candidates for commission seats as the opportunities arise from vacancy or term completion. I received a suggestion to change that to must attend 2 meetings and then be voted in at the 3rd meeting they attend. If there's discussion, we can have that. If there's not, then somebody should call a motion on that. Henry?
Just to clarify, what happens if they're not voted in at the 3rd meeting? Then they're no longer eligible ever?
So again, the mayor makes the appointments. So in terms of associate commissioners, Leanne, do you?
I don't think the mayor has anything to do with associate commissioners. So I think, can I suggest a clarification of wording? So it could then be maybe voted in as an associate commissioner at or at any time after the 3rd meeting they attend. Just because I agree that it's currently ambiguous the way it's written, whether that's 3 meetings and then or 3 meetings and at that one. So yeah, just say, but adding or at any point after avoids the issue that Henry brought up.
Yeah, this is Bonnie. We could also avoid that by just changing 3 to 2 and not address when, because currently it just says and be voted in by the commission.
This is Leanne. I think that would keep the ambiguity as to whether they're voted in at the second meeting or the third.
This is Bonnie. I'm not sure that that matters because whether or not somebody gets voted in depends on whether the current commissioners feel it is worth taking a vote on any particular person. So I think that there doesn't need to be specific clarity there. It standardizes it to, we think that you need to show up to at least 2 meetings. And it is entirely possible that somebody could show up to 2 meetings and not participate, not express interest, and not get taken up for a vote. So I'm not sure we need to fix that ambiguity.
This is Leanne. I do like there being some expectation set, just so there's less question if you're someone coming in, like whether you should be pushing for a vote or not, or like whether you should like. I'm someone who likes knowing what is going to happen ahead of time, so I like there being less question there. But we could decide that someone being voted in the second meeting would be fine. We could decide a lot of things.
Brian?
This is Brian. I think the way that it's currently written could easily be interpreted as on the individual's third meeting that they attended, they could be voted in as an associate commissioner, because it doesn't say completed attendance or anything like that. However, my question is, what is the purpose of the change, whether it's needed now or whether this is a housekeeping item?
This is Bonnie. The purpose is there has been consistent feedback that becoming a member of this commission is a lengthy process that has dragged on. And the purpose is to look at where we can affect that process in terms of understanding that somebody is interested and if they are suitable and want to give to this commission, giving them that opportunity without dragging it out, as most of us have experienced. In terms of, is it necessary? We can talk about who is, we can table this for a second and go to, we have Pauline Downing here, who we have on the agenda to be voted in as an associate commissioner this evening. Pauline, I'm happy to have you share, or I can share a little bit of your history trying to get on the commission.
I don't know whether you can hear me. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. I went to one commission meeting several years ago, and wanted to join. And then I was told, oh, you have to write a letter to the mayor or whatever, and you have to talk to, I forget who they told me I had to talk to. But anyway, I went to the senior center one night and asked Betsy, I don't know her name,
Betsy Allen.
to help me write a letter. Huh?
It was Betsy Allen, the former ADA coordinator.
Yeah, Betsy Allen, yeah. And she wrote out the letter, helped me write the letter, and I thought sent it off. I never heard a thing. And I've been wanting to join the commission for quite a while. I've lived here in Somerville for over 30 years. And I've been a member of a couple of the senior music groups here in Somerville and thoroughly enjoyed them. And I really believe I could contribute something to the commission as a totally blind person who does use public transportation when it's safe. And because of COVID, I haven't felt safe using it. But anyway, I used a guide dog for many years and was all over the place, because I could. And a lot of people who are blind who live in the city right now are probably under the impression that there isn't a safe place in the city to walk because of all the construction, all of the obstacles on the street, the street, what do they call it? Street something. Anyway, the newspaper boxes and all those things that are on the street. They don't need to be there. And I'd like to see a time when we're listened to, when we can say, well, look, this is wrong. Can we change it?
This is Bonnie. Thank you, Pauline. So I will note that when Pauline and I spoke to go over the questions that we as a commission had put together, which were part of the meeting materials, Pauline, as she shared, attended a meeting quite some time ago. She actually said to me, I attended a meeting when Joe Medeiros was on the commission. I did a little bit of looking, just a Google search, and I found a commission minutes from 2007 where Joe was a commissioner. And I said to Pauline, okay, if that was the beginning of his term, then he could have served until 2013 max. And she informed me that he died in 2010 or 2011. So it has been quite some time, probably at least 15 years, since Pauline has first expressed interest in joining this commission. And I know she was one of the people that came out when there was a call put out last year by Nancy Salamoon, and she attended a meeting at this time. So if folks agree that the bylaws are clear that the third meeting would be an appropriate time to vote, I don't think we need to change them tonight. And we can just take up the vote for voting Pauline in as an associate commissioner and recommend, and then separately, I would love to vote on recommending her for appointment to the mayor. Because I think she's demonstrated a commitment to Somerville and has lived experience that this commission desperately needs and has discussed repeatedly we lack. We do not have any blind commissioners, and we know that that is a spot that we need help. So.
This is Leon. I would be happy to vote on both of those.
Would somebody like to make the motion to vote Pauline in?
This is Leon. I motion to vote Pauline. I didn't catch your last name.
It's Downing.
Okay, then I motion to vote Pauline Downing in as an associate commissioner.
I second that motion. All in favor? Aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Would somebody like to motion for me to write a recommendation to share with the mayor?
I will.
I'll second it.
Does somebody want to actually say what we're motioning for in a full sentence?
I motion for Bonnie to write the letter to the mayor as recommendation for Pauline to be a commissioner. Pauline, last name, I've already forgotten.
Downing.
Downing, Pauline Downing.
I second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Great.
What a wonderful day for the commission.
Yes. So the other thing that was on the agenda, which obviously cannot properly be addressed in 4 minutes, Brian needs to recuse himself for, and I'm going to speed read and then text you to come back so that we can close out the meeting.
Yep.
All right. So I'm going to let Brian disappear.
Yep. I will disappear.
Is that sufficient? Okay, there we go. So outdoor dining, the licensing commission this past Monday, yes, it was on Monday, had a meeting about the outdoor dining proposed draft. As you are probably aware at this point from the red line document I sent, a lot of our recommendations were incorporated. A handful of them were not. I shared a lot of commentary there, as did many city councilors and other constituents. The big takeaways, including one of the commissioners on the licensing commission, is that as it stands, there's currently no fine structure, and that is a problem because without enforcement, the document lacks teeth. So shared with you this afternoon was a new redlined version, and Brian incorporated several of the things that I commented on at that meeting, which were to put in more clear guidelines on the ramp requirements and having turning radius on those. And I am going to forget the other 4 things right now. But he incorporated the bulk of the comments, and the only thing outstanding is the fees. So there is a public hearing on Wednesday to go over this again. The licensing commission did not take a vote on approving these because they wanted more feedback and a chance for more discussion on it. So I don't think we have time to vote on whether or not the commission issues something separately. But I encourage everybody to read the new red line document, show up to the licensing commission meeting. It's Wednesday at 5:30, and share comments as a member of the public. We have 2 minutes. We probably have about a minute for comments.
So we cannot vote on the commission creating the statement.
This
Because-
is on, I think we don't have time, given that we're at the end of the meeting. So, but we can all show up as individual constituents and share public commentary.
This is Pauline. Where is this
Leanne.
meeting
Oh,
going to be held?
This is Bonnie. Pauline, the meeting is held on a platform called GoToMeeting, and I can call you tomorrow with the call-in number for that if you would like.
Yes, please.
Or, yeah, I will call you tomorrow with that call-in number. I will find
Bonnie,
it.
can
Okay.
you send me a link?
Yeah, and I will send you a link as well, Jenny.
Okay, because we use GoToMeeting for PTAC all the time.
Okay.
And I've wound up having to copy and paste links to join those meetings.
Yeah, it's not the most accessible.
It's
but
frustrating, but it works. There are workarounds.
Yeah, so I will share that with both of you. Leanne?
This is Leanne. Just a sort of a process question. Can we vote to empower Bonnie to write something for the commission without us seeing it? Or is that a thing you even want to do? Or do you want to just do it as a,
This is
do things
Bonnie,
separately?
you can, and at this point, I do not think that I will have the capacity to draft that and get it out quickly enough to be included as public comment. And I think that it would hold as much power for multiple people, not just me, to show up at that meeting. I will say that there were almost entirely comments saying that you need to do better on accessibility and enforcement, and only a couple of comments from restaurant owners, unfortunately, saying, gosh, it's hard to comply. But for the most part, the community agrees with us. And last night, PTAC did vote to approve our previous memo, so they will be submitting that as public commentary. So,
Oh, I have something to share with you. It's in draft stages right now. Our secretary drafted a letter in support of what you folks are doing. I'll share that with you, Bonnie, as soon as I find it.
Mrs. Bonnie, thank you, Jenny. And that made me just realize that we did not have a secretary for this portion. So, Holly, you're muted.
I will handle the
Great,
secretary.
thank you. All right, I'm going to text Brian so that he can come back on and we can adjourn the meeting officially.
This is Holly. Can I ask that we receive the recorded version of this meeting tomorrow?
This is Bonnie. I do not have the Zoom recording, so that would be a question for Adrian.
So it probably won't process by then, and I am actually still speaking to legal about how much we can do with those recordings. Because it is slightly different than city council. Also, I am not working tomorrow because it's Saturday. So, but I will have an answer for you on Tuesday.
This is Bonnie. I'd be really curious to have an explanation for why we're recording if the meetings can't be shared. Because that feels like it doesn't assist the commission and it doesn't assist the public, but it violates our privacy.
I will get back to you, Bonnie. It's something I'm looking into.
Thank you. Okay. Welcome back, Brian.
Thank you.
Holly will get you notes on this. Do we need, can Brian incorporate them? Do I need to incorporate them separately? Is that a thing we should be asking legal?
I'm not confident. I think I can incorporate them. Everybody votes on them, so I can't do anything sneaky
Right.
anyway.
Then we'll go with that. All right. Thank you, everybody, for robust discussion as always. And thank you, people in the community, for joining us. I motion to adjourn this meeting. Have an excellent long weekend.
All right.